That is unfortunate. Guys, I just recorded 20 minutes worth of information and I disconnected my recording software. So we're going to run it back because the work has to get done. You have to know. This is incredibly important. It is very prominent that I educate you. It's important for me, at least. So, anyway, welcome to The Conversation. This is a show dedicated to providing free of cost education on mental health matters, from novel therapeutics to evolving lifestyle, psychiatric applications, and more. This relatively unscripted podcast is dedicated to starting the conversation with a goal to one day end the mental health crisis, one conversation, research article, and protocol at a time. My name is Bjorseth. I am a psychology student, and I have a passion for educating lifestyle medicine and holistic medicine. This is an extension to my writings with 5 Pillars Health, and this show breaks down scientific knowledge, conversations, and personal experience and findings from research and translates all of that information into consumable and informative packages. Today we're going to talk about lifestyle medicine. And so in general, this is sort of like my passion and what I want to do for my future practice as a therapist or consultant or whatever. We don't have the title yet. We're not going to worry about it. But I'm really into lifestyle medicine and its utilization in both physical institutions and mental/brain institutions. So today I'm going to give you 2 protocols, 2 heuristics, if you will, for lifestyle medicine. But before that, I'm going to talk about 4 complications of lifestyle medicine for psychiatry. The first complication is that lifestyle medicine is incredibly difficult to execute. What I mean by this is that when someone wants to start practicing, behaving, whatever, change their habits with lifestyle medicine, it's incredibly difficult to basically motivate yourself to do so for a few reasons. The first is that the short-term effects are not there, essentially. When you start a lifestyle medicine regimen or strategy, it can take weeks and weeks and weeks to have an effect. Take an omega vitamin, for instance. Let's say you eat a typical American diet. You get fast food maybe twice a week or more. Maybe you eat sort of a lot of ultra processed foods, which isn't always awful, but generally it's not great. So you don't have short-term effects when you take an omega vitamin for its antidepressant or anti-anxiolytic effects. It can take weeks and weeks and weeks to actually start that rhythm within your body and actually begin that effect within your brain, and in turn your brain and your emotions, and then within your body as well. It's a systematic thing, and it takes time for all of these systems in your body to attenuate. Is that the right word? Attenuate for this change. And let's see here. So you often don't have short-term effects, and on top of that, another reason why it's difficult to execute lifestyle medicine is because it takes much more effort. Let's take exercise, for instance. So the current first-line treatment model within therapy namely looks at pharmacological treatments for a few reasons. I have some beef with pharmacology, although I think it is great. I think pharmacology has its place in medicine. I think a lot of us wouldn't be alive today without modern medicine and without these fast-acting tools. But it takes so much effort for lifestyle medicine, and the first-line treatment, as I mentioned, is very fast-acting. These take SSRIs, for instance, it can take about 4 weeks for these medications to start having an effect on your body. And in those 4 weeks, they can sort of build up little by little by little in terms of those positive effects. And then you start to sort of get motivated. And you're like, okay, like, yeah, this is working. But the same cannot be said for a lot of lifestyle medicine, such as like vitamin consumption or even other supplementation, such as creatine, lion's mane, for instance. What else is there? I'd say one of the outliers, at least, that comes to the top of mind is exercise. Exercise, as you know, is great for the body. Something you might not know is that it's great for the brain as well. Exercise at moderate to high intensity has been found to match that of the effects of some pharmacological medications for anxiety and depression in clinical trials. What I mean by this is that when researchers compare, let's go with depression, in participants in many studies, researchers find that patients with MDD or participants with MDD, when they start in SSRI medication, at the beginning of the study, they take a baseline measurement of their depressive symptoms, how they're feeling. So you basically get a measurement for how, quote unquote, depressed someone is. Of course, this is just a number, so who's to really say? And on top of that, self-reports can be skewed and can be wrong, or not wrong necessarily, but you kind of see what I mean. At least I hope so. These baseline measurements, so they take these baseline measurements at T0, meaning, or time 1, at the first initial measure. And then 4 weeks later, they compare that to a group who was to a group who was not forced either. What's the word I want to use here? For people who were told to start exercising, they compare it 4 weeks later, and they find that moderate to high intensity exercise, aerobic exercise, they have the same decrease in depressive symptoms according to things like the Beck Depression Interval Scale, HAM-D assessments, and other like depression scales. So going back to my point, though, it takes a lot of effort to convince someone, or not even to convince someone yet. It takes a lot of effort to go to the gym, because now you have to supplement, or you have to feed yourself the right tools to perform in the gym. You can't expect to work at a moderate to high intensity in the gym if you hadn't eaten, if your water intake is minimal, if not, in a state of dehydration. You can't expect to get the same effects. So now you have to start hydrating. You have to start eating right. Now you have to schedule out an hour of your day or longer, maybe 2 hours, because you got to shower, maybe before and after. And maybe you also have to buy pre-workout as well, because you're exhausted from your 9 to 5. It takes so much effort to start these lifestyle medicine strategies. This is another reason why why it is incredibly difficult to execute. Another reason is that it can be expensive, and like I said, it takes time. What I mean by it can be expensive, so let's say you want to start a new diet. Let's say you want to start a keto diet or a Mediterranean diet. In the keto diet, of course, you're cutting out carbs, but now you have to buy everything else to fill in those caloric deficits that you're now not enacting, but enabling, because carbohydrates have a lot of caloric density to them. Like bread, for instance, I think like a slice of honey wheat bread is like 120 calories or so. And rice as well is great. Potatoes. Are potatoes carbs? I don't know. No, potatoes aren't carbs. Well, I don't know. Grains. I know pasta is carbs, but these are often like staples in people's diets. I know my spaghetti night when I was growing up was probably my favorite night because my mom didn't really enjoy cooking, and spaghetti, you can't really mess up spaghetti. I mean, it's like if you can boil water, you can make spaghetti. And if you can count to 7 minutes or 9 minutes or whatever. But and now you start this ketogenic diet because you know or you've heard that ketones and ketone production rather is great for anti-aging. It's great for sort of removing a bunch of waste material in your body. It is great for losing weight, burning fat, because when we start a ketogenic diet, our body basically, as I mentioned, it generates ketones and uses ketones as a fuel source because now you don't have carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are one of your main fuel sources. I believe our body uses in terms of like generating ATP, our body uses around 60% carbohydrates and 40% of fats. But then when we start this ketogenic diet, our body then transitions into a state where it prefers ketones and lactase, I think, and fats as well. So this is why ketogenic diets are deemed like the umbrella term of like fat burner, which isn't always true, but you get the idea. You see my point. So take the Mediterranean diet too. Before I cut this last, let's make sure we're recording still right now because that would be a real shame. All right, cool. Hey guys, looking at myself, looking at you, looking at me. All right. You start this Mediterranean diet, and the Mediterranean diet, as a quick overview, is essentially eating about 7 to 9 servings of vegetables or fruits per day, eating low to moderate intake of red meats, low to moderate intake of fish, low to moderate or moderate intake of like legumes, beans, stuff like that. What else is there? I don't know how much carbohydrates are involved in the Mediterranean diet, but they definitely play a role. So you start this thing, you start eating more greens. You're like, okay, I'm gonna buy a bunch of salads. So, excuse me. So you tell yourself, I'm gonna buy a bunch of salads. You go to the store, you buy your salad, but then you buy your salad dressing too. Now you're buying in your croutons, whatever else you enjoy your salads with. But now this salad dressing that you buy is loaded with sugars, loaded with all these different chemicals and sweeteners, and you're essentially just taking out all of the positive impacts that you were striving to get from the leafy greens from your salad and just dousing it in the salad dressing. Of course, it makes eating that salad easier because I don't know how many people other than me and my roommates, because I talk about this with them, and I don't know if they enjoy salad dressing, but I enjoy salad dressing. But how I avoid that is I just eat a wad of spinach or a wad of like 50-50 spring mix or whatever, and it's not that appealing. And I definitely don't eat 9 servings of it a day, which I should. Well, not 9 servings of the same package or the same leafy greens, because variety, which I'm going to throw a phrase I like to say out there. Variety is the spice of life, but variety is also important for bacterial function, gut function, because when you introduce all these different organisms within your body, you basically have a bigger selection, a bigger pool. Your body, I mean, has a bigger pool to pick from in terms of like synthesizing different molecules and I mean, like, in this sense, like, more is better. which oftentimes more is not better, especially when it comes to pharmacological treatment, like when you're taking um, antipsychotics or antidepressants. More medication often is associated with increased adverse effects. Anyway, we're getting off topic. It can be extremely expensive when you're buying. Now you're buying these vegetables, and then you're buying your dressing, and you're buying some sort of sauce to go with it, and then now you're also buying all organic foods, and it's an extra $2 every single time to buy your organic peppers than it is to buy the non-organic peppers. And then on top of that, you buy grass-fed beef. It's an extra $5. You're buying free range or pasture-raised eggs, almost double the cost, if not more, than it is to buy just like grade A, all white bleached eggs. All of these different, and when you start that Mediterranean diet, you understand that you have to do everything. You can't just buy the organic eggs and expect a big difference. You have to buy everything. Otherwise, you're just cutting corners. And in that sense, you're cutting yourself out of getting those positive effects from those foods. So it's incredibly expensive. And then on top of that, now you got to spend at least 2 hours a day cooking food. And anyone working a 9-to-5 job and also going to the gym, maybe they're in some sort of community club too. They play pickleball every Tuesday or whatever. You just don't have the time to do this. It is unfeasible. And maybe you have kids too. If you have kids, it can make it even harder because now you're trying to feed, that extra $2 is now times 3 kids plus your husband or your wife. It's times 4. Now you're paying an extra nearly $10, including tax, an extra $10 every single time you buy peppers. And that is just one ingredient. And then you start buying avocados. I don't even want to try to do the math right now, but you get the point. So that is the first complication with lifestyle medicine for psychiatry, and in general, just physical performance. It's incredibly difficult to execute. The second complication is that it is incredibly difficult to practice. How this differs from execution, by practice, I mean actually reading the literature, doing the research, and then figuring out what's right for you. A lot of us don't know how our individual differs from the individuals in this research study for many reasons. Of course, the biggest reason probably is that most of us don't get blood work. None of us are Brian Johnsons. None of us have a $1 million lab in our basement that can tell us at any given moment what our, white blood cell count is, what our, I wonder if you can study gut microbiota composition. But if that's a thing, then none of us know what our gut microbiota function or composition looks like. A lot of us don't get the benefit of understanding what's going on in our body because it is really expensive. It's really expensive. And, if you're lucky enough and you know someone in a lab and say you get that blood panel, now you need to hire someone or pay someone to basically analyze that document for you. And then on top of that, take your knowledge. You tell them, okay, these are my goals. This is what I want to do in terms of like self-treatment or performance, cognitive or physical. This is what I want to do. And then you got to have them sort of like analyze and work with you on figuring out what's right for you. And that can take weeks and weeks and weeks. Like that, that is not a one session, one bullet kind of solution. It's incredibly hard to juggle all of this knowledge. The second reason that it's difficult to practice is that it's even harder to motivate and convince someone or yourself compared to this fast-acting pill or compared to this really cheap pill or cheap strategy. Take nutrition again as an example. I might have mentioned this earlier. I don't know if I deleted this part. I'll just go ahead and say it again. Say you're on your lunch break. You could either go get fast food for, I don't know, $12, or you could spend 30 minutes before work meal prepping at your, I don't know, $15 meal, $10 to $15, $5 to $15, depending on what you're eating. I know, like, what is it called? Uh, what's that, like, oh man, this is going to kill me. Uh, it's like that soy stuff. Um, that's by like the vegetables at the grocery store. Oh my gosh. I can't believe I'm forgetting this right now. God, this is going to kill me. Anyway, it's okay. Scratch that. We're going to look at antidepressant stuff, antidepressant strategies and treatments. So you could either take this SSRI, or, which is just a pill, takes 2 seconds. You just pop in your mouth, swallow, boom, done. You do that every single day. Or you could spend an hour and a half in the gym doing moderate to high intensity exercise. Both of these treatment strategies have the same effect on a clinical basis, meaning in research studies, many of which point to the idea that moderate to high intensity exercise is at the same level of the anti-anxiolytic, antidepressant effects of SSRI, SNRIs, serotonin norepinephrine inhibitors, or selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, I think. So it's incredibly hard to, I mean, we, in American culture at least, we live for, fast. We live for the quick solution. And lifestyle medicine is not that. Lifestyle medicine, which we're going to dive into this when we get to these protocols. So that's the second reason. The third reason, I didn't get to this in the last recording, so I'm glad I can finally speak on some new content. So it's incredibly difficult to educate lifestyle medicine. As I mentioned previously, it's hard to convince someone to want to start exercising instead of taking their taking their medication. And of course, to backtrack a little bit, disclaimer, a lot of people have a lot of positive effects when it comes to pharmacology. Personally, in my past, when I took SSRIs, I experienced sort of all of the adverse side effects from it. Of course, like, I didn't have any like suicidal ideation when I was taking it, and this was years and years and years ago. But I was just like a zombie, and my brain fog was insane. And among many other things, my energy levels were low, all of these things. But it was a lot easier for me at the time to take this pill than it was to work through years and years and years of therapy, to hire a nutrition coach, a dietitian, to hire a personal trainer. It was also a lot cheaper too than doing all of those things, or to start eating healthy. All right, wait 1 second. We got to take a quick H2O break. Stay hydrated, y'all. All right, so it's incredibly difficult to educate. And the idea that you want to change, a lot of people don't want, they want to change, but they don't actually do the things they need to do to change. And this isn't just an American culture thing. This is everybody. Everyone struggles with this issue. It's often the difference between great and good. But it's incredibly difficult to even convince someone the benefits of change. Take someone with depression, for instance. Oftentimes, there is this factor of hopelessness with people with moderate to severe, even maybe mild depression, where you don't even have the energy to think about why you should exercise and why that would be beneficial for you. If I were a therapist and I had a severely depressed person, it would be, there's a lot of friction that goes on when you tell them you need to start working out instead of, I mean, both are difficult options to hear and to do, but instead of, here, I got this pill for you, it'll make you feel less depressed, I would rather go with that option than, thinking, man, I got to start working out. I got to buy pre-workout because my 9 to 5 drains me because I don't have the energy to actually get in the gym. Maybe you have anxiety and it's difficult for you to want to go to a place where people might judge you because you might be a newbie. You might not know sort of the ethics that are involved within a gym setting. Maybe you don't know workouts and you can't afford a personal trainer because most people can't. All of these different factors play a role in persuading you to not change, essentially. Well, maybe not to not change, but it just creates more friction. It makes it harder. And I think that's the biggest kind of takeaway from this, is that it's incredibly difficult to educate. On top of that, maybe you are finally motivated to change and you want to change your behaviors, you want to change your diet, whatever. The problem is that there is so much knowledge out there that, I mean, like the same thing with the difficulty in practice. There is so much knowledge out there and it's hard to know what's right for you. And within the knowledge and within the scientific literature, a lot of which is great, fantastic. However, a lot of it is also flawed. And a lot of people don't understand this. And most of the stuff you see as headlines, most of those studies have countless limitations. They often don't have the same effect as implied by the title of that article. And a lot of people misread this idea. And unless you're in the psycholuminati, as one of my professors says, you will take it as you see it. And unfortunately, that's not the reality of things. So unless you're like a real researcher, you've taken like an ethics class as it relates to like psychological research or whatever else kind of research, kinesiology, nutritional research, whatever, it's hard to know what the truth is and to see between the lines, to actually see the statistical significance, to actually see that p-value is way higher, and the higher the p-value means that the more likely it is that that effect of what was being studied could have just happened by chance. There's also something called heterogeneity levels, which more relates to like meta-analyses, and meta-analyses are essentially research studies that pool together a bunch of other research studies around a specific topic or strategy or experiment, and then they compare the effects from all of these studies. And high heterogeneity levels, oh shoot, sorry guys, what am I doing? High heterogeneity levels in research mean that. Yeah, right. Okay. High heterogeneity levels mean that there's a bigger likelihood that studies are differing in effect from one to the other. Yeah, and essentially that the effects can be unreliable. So now you read this meta-analysis with a headline that says creatine's great for depression, which it is. Read my research article if you haven't already. That is on 5pillarshealth.org, in case you were wondering. But you read this headline and then you dive into the actual study, and there are all these flaws that often they're way down there. It's like 4 pages deep. A lot of people don't get to this point. You read like the abstract and like that's what you take away. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to, like, I'm no professor, and maybe one day, but it is so hard to educate this. I mean, I still have a lot that I need to learn about this. I've only like dipped my toes into this, thankfully, to a great professor I've had who has helped kind of shine the light on seeing through the lines and seeing through the research, because a lot of this research is flawed, and researchers can be unethical in a way where they just want to get paid at the end of the day. And if their study doesn't prove right, it's not that they're not going to get paid, but who's to give them more money for doing more research on that? All right, I got to do a H2O. All right, so the main idea here, it's incredibly difficult to educate. It's incredibly difficult to comprehend the research material that you do find once you get to a state of motivation, once you get to a state of you want to change. It's incredibly difficult to comprehend, to analyze, to figure out how it works for you. So that is the third problem with lifestyle medicine. The fourth and final problem, and then we're going to get to the protocols. Okay, stick in there with me, guys. So it's incredibly difficult to do research on lifestyle medicine. The problem is that you can't isolate for thousands of variables at once to establish causational factors. Compared to something that isn't lifestyle medicine. I can't really think of a comparison at the moment, but let's say that you want to look at the effects of like gratitude on mental health. How are you going to confound for the environment in which someone lives on a longitudinal basis? If you want to study the effect of practicing gratitude, maybe you have a gratitude journal and participants are given this journal and they're encouraged to write in it every single day for 365 days. How are you going to isolate their coworkers? How are you going to isolate the people they see on the way to work? How are you going to isolate or control for angry drivers who are going to cut them off? How are you going to control for their diet? How are you going to control for other behavioral factors, variables? Do they start working out halfway through the program? Do they start a ketogenic diet? Do they start a relationship? Or do they end a relationship? All of these different factors. And then on top of that, how do you get 1,000 different participants to do this at once and then pay them for their efforts? Because no one's going to take on that task for free. It doesn't work like that. Life doesn't work like that. It's incredibly difficult to research this. And I'm hoping one day that we can sort of have like a community of people who want to grow scientific literature in the sense of lifestyle medicine. Maybe I'll do that one day as a business. That's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll write that down later. But the finding statistical significance via participant power, like having enough people even to establish that it's a generalizable effect, isolating all these variables at once. This is just one example of why it's difficult to research lifestyle medicine. A second reason is that there's no money flow going into lifestyle medicine because of the follow the money heuristic. What I mean by this is that a heuristic exists in psychology named follow the money, because in research, say there's a research, let's backtrack a little bit to that like comparison model on exercise to antidepressants. Let's look at like just this antidepressant side. The researcher, say researchers wanted to look at how good is Zoloft or what's another SSRI? citrulline? No, that's something else. You get the idea, though. SSRI, SNRI, or even MOAIs, whatever. They want to find how effective is this medication. I mean, it doesn't even have to be antidepressants. How effective is X? Who's the person funding that research study? Oh, it's the same pharmacological company that produces the pill. Huh. Who would have thought? It says their effect is statistically significant. Oh, look at that. All right, let's start prescribing this medication. Follow the money. This is like a huge idea that one of my professors kind of put me on, and it's kind of shine light on. I mean, it's changed my entire perspective now when I read research. Although I don't back end research as much as I should, because I just like to stay optimistic. I mean, in terms of lifestyle medicine, like, oh, you're telling me creatine will, you're telling me creatine does more than affect my muscles? Like, hell yeah. Like, but you always have to ask questions. You always have to be an independent thinker in this sense. You need to investigate everything you read, because nothing comes for free. And yeah, I mean, there are many other factors which I imagine, Andrew Huberman could shine light on this. Dr. Mark Hyman could shine light on this. There's so many other factors why it's difficult to research. All right. Okay, what are we at? What are we at right now? Okay, 30, almost 37 minutes. Okay, so we're going to get into the two protocols that I've identified. So the first protocol, I'm going to make this short and sweet, by the way, is that lifestyle medicine is a lifelong commitment. When you commit to one of these strategies, take vitamins. I'm going to steal some of this from a LinkedIn post I made the other day. Oh, excuse me. So take vitamins as an example. Once you read some novel article identifying omega-3s as an antidepressant or anti-anxiolytic supplement, maybe you have the idea of starting supplementation to counteract the inflammation-oriented American diet consisting of, hot Cheetos, McDonald's, Ceetos. You get the idea. However, they don't work right off the bat and can take weeks to have an effect. With exercise, the antidepressant effects are much more rapid than that of like vitamins, as I mentioned earlier. But they still require consistency. You go to the gym 3 times a week, maybe 4, 5, 6 times a week. And I mean, with this injury too, for a while, I mean, for the last 5 years, I've been using the gym as a means of just getting out some agitative energy, getting out some negative thoughts. It's a great place to boost muscle growth, to boost, in a physical sense, to boost performance, ability. Ability is a big thing to boost longevity health. When I'm 80 years old, I want to be able to do backflips and go on mile runs and bench press and squat and do all these things. That is a life goal of mine. And in a cognitive sense too, you go to the gym and it is great for self-esteem. It's great for neurotransmitter modulation. It is great for boosting a plethora of positive effects on your mental health and brain health, rather. I think a lot of people need to start looking at mental health as brain health. And in turn, brain health is body health. Both of these are interconnected through several different systems. Your gut microbiota, your bacteria that live in your gut also live in your brain. Your sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system, your endocrine system, enteric nervous system. All of these things are interconnected in your brain and body. So it has a profound effect, a systematic effect, if you will, on your mental and brain health. with lifestyle, let's say you decide to cut your smoking habit, you go a few weeks without smoking and eventually cave in. Your progress in a systematic health sense goes right back to zero. You have to live and breathe, pun intended, a lifelong commitment. When it comes to diets, the Mediterranean diet specifically, for whatever reason that you decide to start the Mediterranean diet, the effects, maybe you just want to feel healthier. And then, you have your cheat day. You have your cheat day and then suddenly you're like, let's say you go 3 weeks with this Mediterranean diet and then you finally get to like the third Saturday and you have your cheat meal and you're like, whoa, I am not doing that again. That Big Mac me up. You know what I mean? A class I TA for, one of the students mentioned, like, after he'd start eating healthy and he had his cheat meals on Saturdays, he, like, seriously felt bad. And I find that to be so accurate. Like, your body adapts to this healthy diet, and all of a sudden, these unhealthy foods that you had been eating your whole life, suddenly you can really feel the negative effects of it, or rather, the absence of the positive effects. So it's a lifelong commitment when you start these lifestyle medicine strategies. And it's unfortunate, but it gets easier every single day that you do it. Take meditation, for instance. Meditation has profound effects on longevity. In fact, one of these effects on longevity, meaning that you live longer, decrease all risk mortality. One of the effects is that, which certain meditation, I don't know the specific certain meditation style that does this, but some of the meditation styles, feel free to Google it. Maybe I'll drop it down. No, I'm not going to do that, honestly. Sorry, guys. This one's up to you. But if you want to fact check me at least. Some of these meditation techniques basically reduce the aging rate of your telomeres. And your telomeres are essentially, if your chromosomes were a shoelace, your telomeres are the caps of those shoelaces. And they stop that shoelace from unwinding. So when you meditate in specific techniques, it can decrease the rate of that aging of that telomere, because as you age, those telomeres get shorter and shorter and shorter. So when you meditate, it doesn't necessarily, well, it could be research on it. It doesn't necessarily grow that telomere length though, but it stops that rate. It slows it down. So now in a sense, on a molecular level, you're aging less quickly, which I think is insane. But the thing is, you have to commit to it. You have to do it daily, if not just very consistently, in order to have these effects. And also, another thing with meditation is that it can highly enhance your emotional capacity and your emotional control. There's a study on monks going into, I think it was an fMRI machine, and basically the researchers were interested in how precise these monks could control their emotions. So they asked them essentially like, okay, I want you to feel like envious, or I want you to feel like sad. And then they looked at that brain region and it activated by like a certain percentage associated with how much they were thinking about it. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Imagine if everybody that you knew had this ability where they could really, really control their emotion. Think about how much better of a place the world would be. Think about the decrease of irrational conflicts we would have. Think about the decrease of crash outs we would have. Anyway, it's a lifelong commitment though. Meditation, dieting, exercising, supplementation, which you shouldn't take supplements your entire life. You should phase these in and out. I imagine alongside exercise styles, because if you only strength train, then and this actually is a nice pivot to my next point. If you only strength train, then your cardiovascular health is at risk. You need to do both cardiovascular, anaerobic, aerobic strength training. You need to do all these different training techniques, and this is just in the lens of exercise. And then you look at diet, and of course, you need to avoid the bad things like alcohol, like seed oils or excessive seed oils, like McDonald's, whatever, hot Cheetos, Red 40. You get the idea. But this diverts right into my next point of this variety factor, in that a protocol for lifestyle medicine is that it involves everything. The more and more, and I'll end it off here, but the more and more I've come to learn about psychology, to learn about social psychology, neuroscience, physical performance, dieting, the gym, even socialization, it involves everything. And there's no one pill, there's no one strategy, there's no one method that will solve all your problems. I mean, it's the hard answer, and it's the easy answer, because it's going to be difficult to do all these things, but at the same time, all you have to do is do all these things. Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in to our third episode. Very happy that we made it to 3. And hopefully we'll just keep riding this out. As always, be better and have a great day. Thanks, y'all.